Why the French Revolution collapsed, Hegel on abstract freedom and the missing labour of mediation. Introduction. Few philosophers have grappled with the meaning of modernity as deeply as GWF Hegel. For him, history was not a random sequence of events, but the rational, albeit painful, unfolding of human freedom. Spirit, Geist, the collective consciousness of a people, develops over time, becoming more self-aware and, crucially, more free. In this grand narrative, the French Revolution of 1789 was a blinding flash of lightning, an event of world historical importance that Hegel initially hailed as a glorious mental dawn. Yet, within a decade, he concluded that the revolution had collapsed into the bloodshed of the Reign of Terror. Why? Because the revolutionaries tried to impose what Hegel calls abstract freedom onto a society without what he calls the labour of mediation. Understanding these two terms is key to unlocking Hegel's enduring lesson about politics, ethics, and social change, a lesson that applies as much to a family dinner table as to a nation. The dialectical stage, Hegel's philosophy of history. To grasp Hegel's critique, one must first understand his three-part dialectic of historical development. Hegel argued that human consciousness moves through stages: the subjective, the abstract, and the concrete. In the ancient world, for example, Persia or China, only one person, the despot, was free, a merely subjective freedom of whim. In the Greco-Roman world, some, the male citizens, were free, but this freedom was embedded in immediate, unreflective customs. With the rise of Christianity and then the Enlightenment, the principle emerged that all humans are free by virtue of their rationality alone. This is a monumental leap forward. However, the Enlightenment often left this principle at a purely abstract level, freedom as a universal, logical idea detached from any particular social context. The French revolutionaries took this abstract principle, liberty, equality, fraternity, and attempted to instantiate it overnight by sheer political will. Hegel saw this as the error of trying to pour the infinite ocean of freedom into the finite, leaky vessel of existing society. Abstract freedom, the terror of the pure I will. For Hegel, abstract freedom is freedom in its most primitive, unmediated form. It is the freedom of pure negation, the capacity to say no to everything that exists, to reject all given laws, traditions, roles, and relationships. It is the freedom of the solitary I that recognizes no external authority. On paper, this sounds exhilarating. The Jacobins, led by Robespierre, declared the old monarchy, feudal privileges, the church's authority, and even the Gregorian calendar abolished. They sought to create a republic of virtuous citizens whose will directly mirrored the general will of the people, with no intermediaries. But Hegel saw a fatal flaw. If freedom is defined only as the negation of everything other than my own abstract self, then it has no positive content. It can build nothing. It can only destroy. When the Jacobins abolished all mediating structures, guilds, local parishes, regional assemblies, family traditions, they left the individual citizen face to face with nothing but the absolute terrifying power of the revolutionary state. The result, Hegel wrote in the Phenomenology of Spirit, was the fury of destruction. Since there was no shared custom, no legal process, no social role to ground anyone's specific identity, any person could be suspected of harbouring a private will contrary to the general will. The only way to preserve abstract freedom was to eliminate anyone who might disagree. Thus, the guillotine became the logical instrument of abstract freedom. It reduced every unique individual to a bare, equal, dead body. Terror was not an accident of the revolution. For Hegel, it was its necessary outcome because an abstract idea, when directly imposed on concrete reality, shatters everything it touches. the labour of mediation, building the scaffolding of real freedom. If abstract freedom is the lightning bolt, the labour of mediation is the lightning rod, the slow, difficult, unglamorous work of constructing institutions, habits, and relationships that channel freedom into sustainable forms. Mediation, in Hegel's sense, means the process by which two opposites are brought into a living relationship through a third term. The individual's abstract desire freedom, thesis, and the objective demands of social reality, antithesis, cannot meet directly. They will clash destructively. They require a mediating structure. This labour is not a one-time event, but an ongoing effort of building what Hegel calls Sittlichkeit, ethical life, the web of concrete institutions like the family, civil society, guilds, markets, legal systems, and the rational state. Each of these institutions stands between the solitary individual and the universal abstraction of freedom. The labour part is crucial. These structures do not appear by decree. They are built through habit, tradition, education, and the slow compromise of conflicting wills. 3 concrete examples. The logic in everyday life. The difference between abstract freedom and mediated freedom is not merely theoretical. It appears in the most ordinary human activities. The family dinner. Imagine a family decides they want to have a more harmonious dinner time. They want freedom from bickering and stress. The abstract approach. One day, a parent announces a new rule. From now on, we will have perfect, peaceful dinners. Anyone who argues will be sent to their room. This is freedom imposed from the top down. It treats the family as a collection of individuals who must directly obey the new general will of the parent. It ignores the reasons for the conflict. Maybe the kids are hungry right after school, or the parents are stressed from work. It tears down the old habit of chaotic dinners without building anything new. The result? The first time someone spills milk, the rule is broken. The parent yells, and the terror of punishment descends. The peace was abstract and collapsed immediately because there were no habits or structures to support it. The mediated approach. The parents recognize that harmony requires work. They do not just announce a decree. Instead, they mediate the goal. They sit down with the kids and create a new institution. Let's have a brief check-in before dinner where everyone can share one good thing and one frustrating thing about their day. They build a habit of listening. They create a tradition of everyone helping to set the table, which builds a sense of shared contribution. The freedom from conflict is not a direct rule. It is the result of these slowly built structures, the check-in, the shared task, that stand between the individuals and the goal. This takes time and effort, the labour, but the resulting peace is real and lasting. Community fitness. A group of friends wants to get in shape. They desire freedom from being unhealthy and out of breath. The abstract approach. One friend, full of revolutionary zeal, declares, "We will all be fit. Starting tomorrow at 5 a.m., we run 5 miles. No exceptions. Your old lazy habits are abolished." This is freedom as an abstract ideal imposed directly. It ignores the mediating realities of their lives. Different work schedules, different current fitness levels, the lack of a meeting point, the absence of a shared commitment. The first morning, maybe one person shows up, or no one does. The decree fails because there was nothing to hold it together. The labour of mediation, the slow work of building a routine, was skipped. The mediated approach. The friends know that getting fit is a process. They build mediating structures. They create a group chat, a small modern institution, to encourage each other. They agree to meet at a specific park, a shared place. They start with a manageable walk, gradually increasing the distance, building a habit. They might even create a little tradition of getting smoothies together afterward, a social bond. The freedom to be fit is not a single event. It is mediated through the group chat, the shared meeting place, the gradual routine, and the social bonds of friendship. It is a lot of work to maintain the group chat and the routine, but that is the labour that makes the freedom real. A workplace project. A team at work wants the freedom to be more creative and productive, unburdened by boring meetings and rigid processes. The abstract approach: a new manager arrives and says, "Creativity cannot be constrained. I am abolishing all set meeting times and processes. You are all now completely free to work on whatever you want, whenever you want. Your direct loyalty is now to the company's mission alone." This sounds liberating, but it is the Jacobin move. By destroying the mediating structures, the regular check-ins, the project management system, the defined roles, they create chaos. No one knows what anyone else is doing. People feel isolated and anxious because they have nothing to hold on to between themselves and the overwhelming pressure of the company mission. The freedom collapses into the terror of confusion, burnout, and missed deadlines. The mediated approach? A good leader knows that creativity needs mediation. You cannot just decree it. The leader works to build the structures that enable freedom. They might establish a shared digital workspace where ideas can be posted and developed collaboratively, an institution. They create cross-functional teams, social bonds, so people are not working in isolation. They establish a tradition of a weekly invention hour, where no regular work is allowed, a habit. The freedom to be creative is not an abstract command. It is made possible by these structures, the workspace, the teams, the tradition, that stand between the individual and the chaotic void of total freedom. Why the revolution failed? Skipping the scaffolding. Hegel's initial enthusiasm for the French Revolution stemmed from its magnificent principle that freedom is the birthright of every rational human being. This was a world historical advance over feudalism. But his disillusionment came from seeing the revolutionaries try to build the cathedral of freedom without any scaffolding. They believed that by destroying the old mediating institutions, the monarchy, the church, the guilds, the pure, abstract, general will would directly rule. Instead, what ruled was the paranoid will of the Committee of Public Safety. In Hegelian terms, the revolutionaries confused the substance of freedom, the rational principle, with its actual existence in the world. A right that exists only on paper or in a decree is not a real right. It is an abstract ghost. Real freedom, the ability to live a self-determined life without fear of arbitrary violence, requires a concrete legal code, a predictable judiciary, a stable economy, and a culture of civic trust. These are the results of labour, not of proclamation. The revolution failed not because its ideals were wrong, but because it refused to do the patient, mediating work of building new institutions before tearing down the old ones. The examples above show this at every scale. The parent who skips the check-in and the shared task gets a chaotic dinner. The friend who skips the group chat and the gradual routine gets an empty park at 5 a.m. The manager who skips the shared workspace and the weekly invention hour gets burnout and missed deadlines. In each case, the result of abstract freedom is the same: the terror of collapsed expectations, punishment, or isolation. And in each case, the labour of mediation, slow, unglamorous, ongoing, is the only path to real, lasting freedom. Conclusion. Hegel's distinction is not a conservative defence of all tradition. He was a progressive who believed in rational change. His point is that meaningful freedom is embodied, not ethereal. Abstract freedom is the freedom of the arsonist. Mediated freedom is the freedom of the architect. The arsonist feels the exhilaration of pure negation, but leaves a wasteland. The architect labours over blueprints, materials, and load-bearing walls, but eventually builds a house where people can truly dwell. Thus, when Hegel says the French Revolution descended into terror, he means that any attempt to realise an ideal whether political, social, or personal, without the labour of mediation is doomed. Whether it is a family, a fitness group, a workplace, or a nation, the lesson is the same. One cannot simply decree freedom. One must build the habits, relationships, and institutions that make it possible. The guillotine is always waiting for those who try, but for those willing to do the labour, to set the table, to start the group chat, to establish the weekly invention hour, freedom becomes not an abstract dream, but a concrete lived reality.